The sky was burning red when Jack's ship broke through the clouds of Kyrith Prime. Sparks flew across the cockpit as alarms screamed in his ears. He tried to steer, but the controls were dead. The ship twisted, hit the treetops, and crashed with a loud boom into the thick jungle below. Smoke filled the air and everything went quiet. Jack groaned and opened his eyes. His arm hurt, and blood ran down his forehead. He coughed and unbuckled himself, crawling out of the wreckage. The ship was broken, crushed by the impact. There was no signal, no help, and no humans around. He was alone, on a strange alien planet. Tall trees surrounded him. Glowing plants lit. The shadows and strange sounds echoed from deep within the jungle. He grabbed his emergency pack and limped away from the wreck, hoping to find clean air and safe ground. Hours passed as he walked through vines and mud, listening to the growls and screeches of unknown creatures. He was weak, tired, and scared. Suddenly he heard a snarl behind him. A huge beast with 4 legs and sharp teeth jumped out of the bushes, eyes glowing green in the dark. Jack froze, heart pounding, reaching for a broken piece of metal as a weapon. But just before the beast pounced, something even faster attacked. From the side, a blur of violet skin and silver claws slammed into the creature. The beast cried out, thrashed, then ran away into the jungle limping. Jack backed up, shocked, holding his breath. The figure stood tall in front of him. It was a female alien, strong and graceful. Her eyes were golden and sharp. Her face had markings like tribal war paint, had a weapon made of bone, and strange armor made from scales and cloth. She looked at Jack, tilting her head like she was studying him. He tried to speak, but only a dry cough came out. The alien female stepped forward and sniffed the air around him. Then, without a word, she grabbed his arm gently and guided him through the trees. Jack didn't fight her. He was too tired, too confused. After a short walk, they reached a hidden cave with glowing moss on the walls. It was warm and quiet inside. She sat him down near a small fire pit and gave him water from a pouch. Jack drank it slowly, watching her. She didn't say anything, just watched him in return, eyes glowing softly in the light. As Jack rested, he kept thinking, why did she help him? Who was she? And what did she want in return? He tried speaking. Thank you, he said, pointing at himself. Jack. She watched him and then repeated softly, Jack. Her voice was low but gentle. Then she touched her chest and said, Vaelith. Jack nodded. Vaelith, he said, trying to smile. She smiled back just a little, then turned to check outside the cave. Jack noticed the marks on her skin were glowing faintly, and her movements were quiet and sharp, like a hunter. That night, Jack slept in the cave, close to the fire, wrapped in a blanket made of fur she had given him. He felt safer than before, but also uneasy. There was something strange about the way she looked at him, like she had already made a decision, like he was hers now. When he opened his eyes in the middle of the night, he saw Vaelith sitting nearby, staring at him through the flickering firelight. She didn't move, didn't blink, just watched him like a protector, or something more. Jack turned away, closing his eyes again, trying to ignore the feeling in his chest. He thought he was just a visitor here, a lost man waiting for rescue, but the way Vaelith watched him said something else, and deep down even Jack started to wonder, was this crash just an accident? Or had he landed in the middle of something far older, far deeper than he could understand? The jungle was silent now, but the scent of fire, moss, and something wild hung in the air. Jack didn't know it yet, but his life had already changed, forever. And Vaelith, she wasn't just helping him survive. She was claiming him, in her own way, under her own alien law. The morning light came slowly through the jungle leaves, soft and green. Jack opened his eyes to birds calling in strange rhythms. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, and noticed something odd. His shirt smelled different. It wasn't the smoke or dirt from the crash, it was something musky, sweet and warm. He touched his collar, then sniffed again, confused. The scent wasn't his. Vaelith stepped into the cave just then, carrying fruit and a bone knife. She looked at him and nodded, then came closer without saying a word. Jack tried to speak. What is this smell? He asked, pointing at himself. Valeth tilted her head and said something in her language, a soft growl mixed with a whisper. Then she knelt in front of him, slowly reached out, and touched his chest with the back of her hand. Her fingers rubbed gently across his shoulder, just over the cloth, and then touched his neck. Jack froze, unsure what she was doing. She pulled her hand back and then rubbed her own skin, just beneath her jawline, and touched him again in the same spot. Jack's heart raced. "Wait, what was that?" he said, trying to laugh, but she wasn't joking. She looked proud, almost serious, like she had done something very important. He leaned back a little. Feeling strange, Valeth stood up and moved to the entrance of the cave, still silent. Jack touched his neck again. The scent was stronger there now, like some invisible mark. He didn't know it. But she had just performed an ancient bonding gesture from her people. To her, it meant one thing: he was hers. Later, they left the cave to find food. As they walked through the jungle, Jack felt the weight of the alien world more than ever. Strange. Vines curled like snakes, and creatures flew between the trees with glowing wings. But the strangest thing happened when they reached a water pool. A second female alien appeared, stepping out from the trees, tall and strong. With green skin and black eyes, she spoke to Valeth in their native tongue. Fast, sharp words filled with tension. Jack didn't understand, but he could tell something was wrong. The new alien looked at him and then took a step forward, reaching out to touch his arm, but before she could, Valeth snarled loudly and pushed her back. The jungle went silent. The second female hissed and pointed at Jack, then turned and vanished into the trees. Jack stared, shocked. "What was that?" he asked, heart pounding. Valeth breathed heavily, her claws still out, her body tight like a coiled spring. Then she looked at Jack, walked over and rubbed her arm again, this time with more pressure, more scent, and pressed her hand hard against his neck. It wasn't gentle this time. It was clear, bold, and full of meaning. Jack stepped back. "Valeth, what does this mean?" he asked, feeling overwhelmed, but she just looked at him with those glowing golden eyes and said, "You." Not touched, he blinked. "You mean others can't touch me?" She nodded. "Mine." The word hit him like a shockwave. He had been marked, claimed like property, or maybe something deeper. He didn't know if he should be afraid or honored. Back at the cave, he sat in silence, thinking, was this real? Was he in danger? Or had he just stepped into a culture where touching, scent, and claiming meant more than words? Valeth watched him quietly, sitting near the fire, her face soft again, her claws retracted. She didn't force him to accept it. She just waited. Jack sighed and looked up at the stars that peeked through the cave's roof. His world was gone, his ship destroyed. No signal, no rescue. And here he was, marked by a silent warrior on a world where even scents could speak louder than words. But part of him didn't want to run. Part of him liked the way she looked at him, like he was precious, like he was chosen. Still, questions burned in his mind. What would happen if more aliens saw him? Would they fear him, attack him, or challenge Valeth for him? He didn't know, but tonight, as he lay down, the scent on his neck still warm in the air, he felt something he hadn't felt since the crash. Belonging, Valeth lay a short distance, away, watching, guarding, breathing steady. And in the firelight, Jack closed his eyes slowly, whispering, "What are you doing to me, Valeth?" She heard him, but didn't answer. She didn't need to. She had already spoken. In the only way. Her kind knew how. By the third day, Jack could walk without limping. His wounds were healing thanks to Valeth's careful bandages and strange alien salves, but the scent on his neck never faded. If anything, it grew stronger, warmer, almost like it was a part of him now. Jack didn't understand how a single touch, one silent ritual, could change so much. He was no longer just a lost human. He was now. Claimed Valeth led him deeper into the jungle that morning, through thick vines and rocky paths. She said only one word before they reached their destination. Home. Jack stepped through a large curtain of moss and into a clearing, and froze. Dozens of alien eyes turned toward him. He had entered a village hidden between the trees and cliffs, built with bone, crystal, and living wood. The people looked like Valeth, tall and strong, each with different markings and skin tones. From soft violet to dark blue to emerald green, children played with glowing stones, warriors trained with bone spears, and elders sat in circles under lantern trees. But now, they were all staring at Jack. Some whispered, others scowled, and a few stepped back as if he were dangerous. Jack stayed close to Valeth, unsure of what to do. She placed a hand on his chest and said loudly, "Mine." A murmur passed through the crowd. An older male, taller than the rest and covered in golden tattoos, stepped forward. He was the chieftain, or something like it. He looked at Valeth, then at Jack, and spoke in slow, deep tones. Valeth replied with strong words and hand gestures, her eyes full of fire. Jack could feel the tension, even without understanding the language. Finally, the chieftain pointed at him and said in broken English, "He not from here, not meant for this." Valeth stood tall and said clearly, "He is chosen." Gasps echoed around them. Jack raised his hand. "Wait, what does that mean? Chosen for what?" Valeth turned to him and whispered, "Chosen for bond. Chosen for me." Before Jack could respond, a voice cut through the air like a blade. "Tch, a human? You think that thing is worthy?" Everyone turned as a new figure stepped out from the crowd. She was fierce, taller than Valeth, with green-tinted skin and eyes like polished metal. This was Tarka, one of the elite hunters, and Valeth's rival, Tarka, walked straight to Jack, ignoring Valeth, and stared at him like he was an insect. "He smells weak," she said in her language, and the others laughed quietly. Valeth growled, her claws sliding out with a sharp sound. Tarka smirked and stepped, even closer to Jack. "I can rub my scent on him too. Let's see if he chooses me." Jack stepped back, confused and uncomfortable. But before Tarka could touch him, Valeth slammed her arm across Tarka's chest and shoved her away. The crowd gasped again, this time louder. The chieftain raised his hand and shouted a single word. Everyone froze, even Valeth and Tarka. Then the meaning became clear. A challenge had been declared. Tarka smiled, her eyes glowing with excitement. "Finally," she hissed. Valeth said nothing, only nodded and looked at Jack with a calm but serious expression. That night, Jack sat in the edge of the village, watching warriors prepare the sacred ground for the fight. He couldn't believe what was happening. Valeth had marked him, claimed him, but now she had to fight for him. And if she lost, would Tarka get him? Would he be forced to follow alien rules he didn't even understand? He felt like a trophy in a game he never signed up for. Valeth sat beside him quietly, sharpening her blade. Jack looked at her. "You don't have to do this," he said. She paused, then said softly, "I must. Not just for claim, but for heart." He looked into her eyes and saw more than just a warrior. She was scared, proud, stubborn, and maybe in love. The next morning, the fight began. The village gathered around the ring made of glowing stones and leaves painted with ritual dye. Tarka entered first, roaring and lifting her spear. Valeth followed, quiet and focused, her blade gripped tight. The battle was fast and brutal. Sparks flew, skin was cut, roars echoed, and dust rose like smoke. Jack's heart raced with every strike, every fall, every scream. Tarka was strong, but Valeth was quicker, smarter, and more determined. In the end, Valeth pinned her rival to the ground, blade to her neck. She didn't kill her. She just whispered something into Tarka's ear and walked away. The crowd cheered, and the chieftain raised his staff in approval. Valeth stood in front of Jack, blood on her arm, a bruise on her cheek. Jack rushed to her, grabbing her hand. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly, breathing hard, and said one word. "Mine." Jack didn't hesitate this time. He touched her face gently and said, "Then I guess I'm yours." The sun had barely risen over the canopy of Kyrith Prime, but already, the village felt different. Since the duel, Valeth walked with her head held high, her scent unmistakably marked across Jack's neck. The villagers kept their distance, not out of fear but out of respect, and something else Jack was beginning to notice. Jealousy. He had become more than just a crash-landed human. He was now the chosen one of Valeth, the fierce warrior who had just won a sacred challenge and not everyone was happy about it. As Jack helped carry water from the stream, some of the younger alien males whispered behind him, their eyes narrow, their voices bitter. He didn't need to understand their language to know they were mocking him. Look at him, still weak, one said. Valeth wasted her scent on a fragile creature. Another added. Jack turned and gave them a nod, pretending not to care, but inside his chest felt tight. He didn't ask for this. He didn't ask to be claimed or fought over or watched like a rare animal in a cage. He just wanted to survive and maybe find a way back home. But now, leaving didn't feel as simple as before. Back at the village center, Valeth was sharpening her blade while the children stared at Jack from a distance, giggling and running away when he waved. An older female approached him, her face wrinkled, her eyes wise. She placed a hand on his shoulder and spoke slowly in English. You carry scent of fire. Jack tilted his head. Fire? The elder nodded. She burns for you. Jack didn't know what to say, so he just smiled awkwardly. But the elder added one more thing, her voice suddenly serious. When fire burns too bright, shadows grow jealous. Those words stayed with him. That night, while the village celebrated the upcoming moon festival, Jack stayed near the fire pit, watching the flames. Valeth danced with the other warriors, her movements sharp like wind and thunder. Drums echoed through the trees, and laughter filled the air. But Jack didn't feel like celebrating. He felt eyes on him, more than usual, and when he looked up, he saw Tarka across the flames, sitting alone, watching him without blinking. She hadn't spoken to him since the fight, but her gaze spoke loud. She had lost, but she hadn't let go. Later, Jack stepped away from the noise, walking along the path that led to the outer trees. He just needed a moment alone. But the moment didn't last. Tarka appeared from the shadows, moving silently like a predator. Human, she said in perfect English, her voice low and calm. You don't belong to her. Jack took a step back. I think the challenge already decided that, Tarka smirked. She won a fight, not your heart. Jack crossed his arms. What do you want, Tarka? She moved closer, her eyes glowing faintly. I want to understand what she sees in you. Then, without warning, she reached out and touched his arm. Jack pulled away. Don't do that. But she only laughed. What will she do if I mark you too? Fight again? Or lose you forever? Before Jack could answer, a snarl cut through the air. Valeth had arrived, fast and furious, her claws already drawn. She stood between Jack and Tarka, her body tense, her scent burning strong like smoke, and spice. Tarka backed off, raising her hands. I did nothing. Valeth didn't respond with words. She stepped close to Jack, pressed her cheek against his, and rubbed her scent harder than ever before. The heat of her touch, the power of her presence. It silenced everything, even Tarka. Valeth looked at her rival and said something in their language. Sharp and final, Tarka growled softly and disappeared into the woods. Jack stood still, his heart pounding. Valeth turned to him, her hand still on his chest, her breath warm against his skin. She wants you not for bond, but for power, she whispered. Jack nodded slowly. I'm starting to see that. He placed his hand over hers. But I didn't choose her. Valeth blinked, unsure what he meant. Jack smiled gently. I'm still here. With you. For the first time since they met, Valeth leaned forward and rested her forehead against his. No growl, no ritual, no fight. Just silence. That night, back at the cave, Jack didn't sleep far from her. He lay close, her scent wrapped around him like a blanket. The scent that once confused him now brought him peace. But in the darkness of the jungle, jealousy still stirred, because not everyone had accepted that a human could be part of them. And not everyone had given up the idea of taking him, by scent or by force. The days passed, but the scent on Jack's neck never faded. It had become part of him now, a mark he no longer tried to wash away. At first it was strange, confusing, even unwanted, but now he understood. Valeth hadn't just claimed him. She had protected him, fought for him, and in her own quiet way, loved him. But everything changed the day he heard the signal. Jack was checking a damaged communication panel from his wrecked ship, tucked in the back of the village's storage hut. He had fixed the power link days ago, but it never picked up anything until now. A faint sound crackled through the speaker. "Echo, 22 to lost unit," a voice said, filtered by static. "Jack Carter, respond if alive." His heart skipped. It was a human voice, a rescue team. He leaned in and pressed the mic. "This is Jack," he said quickly. "I'm alive. I'm on Kyrith Prime." There was a pause, then a reply. "Hold your location. Evac ship in orbit. We'll retrieve in 48 hours. Jack dropped the device, stunned. He was going home. The news spread through the village faster than wildfire. Some looked curious, others worried. Valeth said nothing, but her golden eyes didn't blink for a long time. That night Jack sat by, the fire with her, the moonlight casting shadows over her face. "I never thought they'd come," he said softly. "I thought I'd be stuck here forever." Valeth didn't respond. Instead, she handed him something, a small blade carved from crystal and bone. Jack took it, confused. "For memory," she said. "If you leave." He held it tight. "If?" Valeth stood slowly, her voice quiet but firm. "They take you, or I fight." Jack's eyes widened. "Valeth, no," he said, standing up. "You can't fight humans." She looked away, pain flickering across her face. "You are claimed. They will not understand." Jack stepped closer. "You think I just go and leave you behind?" She didn't answer. He placed a hand on her arm. "I don't want to be rescued from you." But Valeth only stared at the stars above. "You say now, but when you see sky again, will you remember me?" The next morning, Jack walked to the edge of the forest, away from the village. He needed to think, away from the tension, the eyes, the jealousy. But he wasn't alone. 2 alien males, ones, who had always whispered behind his back, blocked his path. One of them spoke in rough English. "She fights for you." "Why?" Jack raised his hands. "I didn't ask for that." They circled him slowly. "If you leave, it makes her weak." The other said, "She loses honor." Jack backed up. "I didn't come here to steal your rules." But they didn't care about words. One grabbed his shoulder, the other reached for his neck, trying to wipe away Valeth's scent. Jack shoved them back. "Don't touch me," he warned. Before they could strike again, a blur of motion tackled one to the ground. Valeth, furious, claws out, let out a roar that shook the trees. The 2 males scrambled away, bleeding and terrified. Valeth turned to Jack, checking him for injuries, breathing hard. "I'm okay," he said. "Just shaken." She looked at him with something new in her eyes, not just fire, but fear. "You will leave soon," she said. "I must protect before that." Jack shook his head. "Maybe I don't have to." Valeth stared at him, confused. "You would stay?" Jack looked down at the crystal blade she had given him, then up into her glowing eyes. "Not because I'm trapped," he said. "Because I choose you." That night, while the village slept, Jack took the communication panel and walked deep into the jungle. He climbed the cliff above the tree line where he could see the stars clearly. The rescue ship's light blinked high in orbit, waiting. Jack pressed the mic and whispered, "Mission Command, this is Jack Carter." A voice replied quickly, "We see your signal, extraction team ready." Jack paused, looked at the stars, then closed his eyes. "Cancel it," he said. "Tell them I'm not coming back." Static answered first, then the shocked voice replied, "Say again, Carter." "I said cancel it," Jack repeated. "I found something more important here." He turned off the panel and let the silence return. Back in the village, Valeth waited at the cave entrance. When she saw him return, she didn't ask what he had done. She just walked up to him, pressed her cheek to his once again, and whispered, "Still mine?" Jack smiled, breathing in the scent he now knew by heart. "Always," he said. The stars above Kyrith Prime blinked like cold eyes, but Jack Carter no longer looked to them for rescue. He had made his decision. He had turned off the signal, ended the call for extraction, and now everything was different. The next morning, the village buzzed with quiet tension. Some had heard rumors, others sensed the change in the air. Jack walked through the village with his head high. Some greeted him with cautious nods, others still avoided him. But he didn't care anymore, because when he looked to his side, Velith was walking beside him, silent, strong, proud, and that meant more than any escape pod or return flight ever could. Still, not everyone believed his choice would last. The elder who had once warned him about jealousy called for him at midday. Jack followed her into the stone hall at the heart of the village. Inside, the walls were marked with stories, drawings of old warriors, alien beasts, and glowing trails through the stars. The elder sat on a curved bench made of roots and crystal, her eyes sharp and calm. "You denied your people," she said softly. "You turned from your sky." Jack nodded. "I chose to stay." She tilted her head. "Why?" He thought for a moment, then said, "Because I was only surviving out there. Here, I feel something else." The elder didn't smile, but her voice warmed slightly. "You love her?" Jack looked down, then up again. "Yes," the elder leaned forward. "Then you must bind it." "Bind?" Jack asked. "A bond must be more than scent and words," she said. "You must make it known to her people and to yours." That night, Velith found Jack sitting by the edge of the waterfall looking at the stars. She sat beside him, her shoulder brushing his, neither speaking for a while. Finally, Jack asked, "Did you ever think I would stay?" Velith looked at him. "No," she whispered. "Humans run when sky calls." Jack smiled. "Maybe I was different all along." She turned her head, eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. "Why stay?" He looked into her eyes. "Because you didn't just save me," he said. "You changed me." Velith looked away for a moment as if unsure of what to say. Then she placed something in his hand, a small stone pendant, shaped like a fang, carved, with her clan symbol. "My father gave this to my mother when he claimed her," she said. "I made this one for you." Jack stared at it, heart pounding. He slid it around his neck slowly, the fang resting just above her scent mark. "It's warm," he said, surprised. Velith leaned closer. "It holds my heat." They sat there in silence, closer now than ever. No growls, no rituals, just two hearts learning to beat together. But not everyone accepted this bond. In the shadows of the trees, some still plotted. Tarka watched from a distance, her eyes cold. She had lost the challenge, but not the war. She spoke to two males, whispering plans, planting fear. "If the human stays, others will follow," she said, "and our ways will be lost." They nodded, angry and afraid. Jealousy was a poison, and it was spreading. The next day, Jack woke to shouting in the village. Someone had stolen one of the sacred weapons from the Hall of Ancients. The village was on edge. Jack stayed close to Velith, feeling the tension build like a storm. Later that night, Velith took him outside the village, to a high cliff where the wind howled across the trees. There she lit a fire and painted symbols. On the rocks using glowing blue sap, Jack watched, curious. "What is this?" "A rite," she said. "If you truly choose to stay, we complete the bond." She handed him a small blade and held out her palm. Jack hesitated, then nodded and made a shallow cut across her hand. She did the same to his, and they pressed, their hands together. The glowing sap lit up around their blood, spinning into the sky like fireflies. "In the eyes of my people," she said, "you are no longer visitor." Jack looked at her. "What am I now?" Velith smiled softly. "You are mine, and I am yours." Just as the words left her lips, the bushes below the cliff rustled. Figures moved in the dark. Tarka and the others had come, not to witness, but to stop the ritual. But before they could strike, the elder arrived with warriors, blocking their path. "This is sacred ground," she shouted. "You will not break what is chosen by the blood." Tarka growled but stepped back, defeated again. The elder looked up at Jack and Velith standing together with joined hands. She nodded slowly. "The bond is complete." That night, the jungle was quiet, and for the first time, Jack didn't feel like a visitor or a trophy or a mistake. He felt like a part of something real, something ancient, something strong. As he lay beside Velith, her scent warm around him, he whispered, "You never have to fight for me again." She smiled. With her eyes closed, I don't fight for you now, she said. I fight with you. The sun rose slowly over the jungle, turning the sky gold and green. Birds called from the trees and the air smelled of moss and firewood. Jack stood at the edge of the village watching as the clan elders carved a new mark into the stone wall bow, symbol of a bonded pair, his and Valeth's. The villagers gathered quietly, watching the carving take shape. No one laughed now, no one whispered. They watched with quiet respect. A human had chosen their way, and their warrior had chosen him. Jack turned and saw Valeth standing beside the fire pit, dressed in ceremonial armor made of bone, feather, and shimmering scales. She looked taller, prouder, and softer all at once. When their eyes met, she smiled. Not with her mouth, but with her whole face. Jack walked to her slowly, the fang pendant still warm against his chest. Did we really change their minds? He asked. Valeth nodded. Some minds bend like tree, she said. Others break. He smiled. You ever think this would happen? You and me? She looked around at her people, then at him. No, she said simply. But I'm glad it did. They walked together through the village side by side, no longer needing words to explain what they were. The children followed them, laughing and throwing glowing seeds in the air. Jack picked one up and held it to his nose. It smelled like honey and wildflowers, but beneath it, he could still smell her scent on his skin, and it gave him peace. As they reached the village center, the elder raised her hand and the drums began to beat. Slow, steady, ancient. It was time for the binding walk. Valeth and Jack stepped onto the stone path as villagers, lined the sides, each tossing petals made of crystal leaves. The wind carried their scent down the path, announcing them, one by one. Others stepped forward to add their own scents, light ones, respectful, not to claim, but to bless. Jack breathed it all in, overwhelmed. His heart full. At the end of the path, a small flame burned, and beside it sat a bowl filled with glowing sap. Valeth dipped her fingers and marked his chest again, over the pendant. Then Jack did the same, placing the mark over her armor above her heart. The drums stopped, and silence fell. Jack turned slowly to the crowd and raised his hand. I am not just hers, he said, his voice steady. I am yours too now. The villagers pounded their chests, then raised their hands, repeating the gesture. A new tradition had begun. Later that evening, Jack walked to the cliff where he had once called for rescue. He looked up at the stars, and for the first time, they didn't make him feel small. They made him feel home. Valeth joined him, standing close, her arm brushing his. You still miss them? She asked, meaning Earth. Jack nodded. Sometimes, he said. But if I had left, I'd have missed you more. She smiled, then pulled something from behind her back. It was a small pouch, tied with golden vine. Inside was a mix of crushed leaves, polished stones, and a small cloth that carried her scent. For when I must hunt far, she said. You keep this. Always remember. Jack took it and tied it to his belt, feeling a strange warmth inside. Thank you, he said. But I don't need it to remember you. She leaned in close and rubbed her cheek against his again, soft and slow. Jack did the same. Without hesitation, her scent was now part of him. And his scent, though strange to her people, was now part of her. From the bushes, one of the little alien girls ran out laughing and touched Jack's hand, curious and bold. Valeth didn't growl this time, but she stepped forward, gently pulled the girl back and rubbed Jack's arm again in front of her. The message was clear. Still mine. The little one giggled and ran off, and Jack turned to Valeth with a smirk. You really like making that clear, huh? Valeth looked serious for a moment, then said, You are not just scent, she whispered. You are heart. Jack stepped close, forehead resting against hers. And you're my future, he whispered back. The stars shone above them, no longer distant, below. The jungle hummed with life, and the village glowed with new lights, and at the center of it all stood a human and an alien, two beings from different worlds, now bound by scent, by fire, by choice, forever.